Hello, vinyl community. Are you quarantined or are you quarantined? Well, welcome back. Mike Guitar Player 07 here, coming at you live with another vinyl record video. And today we got the Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition. Now, I must admit that one or two of these questions I do have to use CDs for, even though it's a vinyl tag, because the one album isn't available on wax, and the other one, if it's available on wax, I just don't own it on wax yet. But I know for a fact the one is not. So, let's just get right to it, shall we? So, the first question is, what is your favorite record from your home state or city? I'm from New Jersey. I'm not going to say my town publicly. However, my town does not have anybody famous from it. However, 15 minutes away from me, out of high school, the next town or two over, Halsey went to high school, 15 minutes from me. My friend's sister went to high school with Halsey's brother. That's the closest celebrity to where I live. Now, I enjoy Halsey, but unfortunately, I do not have any of her works on vinyl record, or CD for that matter, only digitally or Spotified. So, that doesn't mean that there's no other choice. I just thought it'd be cool to share that I live that close to where a celebrity went to school and lived. But everybody knows from New Jersey, there's also like Frank Sinatra, Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, all that. I decided to go with this album. And it is Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet. Let me pull this out of the sleeve for you so we don't get no glare. This is Bon Jovi's album from 1986. Arguably one of his most well-known, if not the most well-known. It has the hits You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, and Wanted Dead or Alive. But also on classic rock radio, you generally will also hear Raise Your Hands and Let It Rock every so often. There's not a single bad song on this album. It's fantastic start to finish. And Bon Jovi was originally from New Jersey up until about, I'm thinking it's getting close to 10 years at this point that he moved to New York. But most of his life he was in New Jersey. And he also had an album called New Jersey, but my choice is Slippery When Wet. And fantastic album. And I believe Dylan, the record spinner, my other fellow Jerseyan, also chose this album as his choice, which was kind of cool. All right, I guess I'll put them there. All right. An album you highly recommend. Well, you know my favorites. You know the whole Metropolis, Pink Floyd The Wall, Beatles White Album, Beatles Abbey Road, Frank Zappa's Joe's Garage, you know, Johnny Cash, sound Johnny Cash sings songs over Soiled. You know, the general stuff I usually pick out. But I decided to choose something different. This is an artist that's mentioned every so often in the VC, but not often enough, and this musician is fantastic. Emmylou Harris. This is her album, Elite Hotel. And this is one of my two favorite Emmylou Harris albums, of the ones I know. And what's so fantastic about this one? I mean, I really like it. I mean, it was one of my grandfather's records, and I remember the first time I ever heard this, and it was one of the times where the family was around, and I remember listening to it with the family, and she does a cover of the song Jambalaya on here, which at the time I did not know was a cover song. I did not know it was originally the original Hank Williams song. So my grandfather actually asked me, that's original Hank Williams song, and I was like, no. So I have that attached to it. Not much of a story, but little tidbits like that I think about when I hear these kind of albums or have those things. And I also later learned in that day that jambalaya was a food dish, and then a couple months later my grandmother made me it, and she made a damn good jambalaya. So I just think this is a great country album. If you don't really like traditional country, it's traditional country, but it's not at the same time. It's not like the whole stereotypical kind of country that you'd hear. And there's a song on here that Buck Owens wrote called Together Again. I don't know if Buck Owens did a version of the song, but I know he wrote it. But Emmylou Harris's version is just extremely beautiful. That was a one hit off this album. If you don't listen to anything else, check out that song. It's just a great tune. And also it's on It's under a reprise or reprise label. Everybody says it differently. And on the label, it has this little cool little creature guy on it. I don't know what that guy is or what it represents, but this is the only album I've ever seen it on, so I think it's just an Emmylou Harris Elite Hotel thing, but good stuff. That's an album I would highly recommend. A tip for beginners. Oh, I got a couple. First and foremost, when you're buying records, check them. I mean, you see the covers, you'll see it's worn or not, and sometimes the cover is beaten to crap, but the record itself is in good condition. Sometimes I've found a near mint record in a terrible sleeve. So check the albums, and the sleeve itself might be perfect, but the record could be beaten to crap. So you want to check for warpage and dirt and all that kind of thing, and scuffs and scratches. And I would also recommend making sure you have some sort of cleaning system. For me, I use a Spin Clean. I don't have it with me. It's in another room, but it's just a yellow container that you have. You fill it with distilled water, add the Spin Clean fluid into it, and then you follow the instructions on how to clean the record with it. It has brushes, so pretty much get yourself a Spin Clean to clean it, because some of those dirty records will play perfectly fine as soon as you clean them. I've bought records that were filthy, but I knew that just looking at it, that cleaning it would fix it up. And I turned a record that had caked on dirt to a record that played without a problem, or little to no problems. So, and also don't play dirty records. If you buy a dollar record that's dirty, don't play it, because it'll ruin your stylus. After a while, you'll get dirt all over your stylus, and then your audio quality won't be good, and it'll ruin the record grooves. It could damage. Pretty much just don't do it. My phone cut out, so I had to fix that for a second. So do that, and then get a anti-static microfiber brush. So every time you put the record on your turntable, if there's any little pieces of dust, or if you have paper sleeves, pieces of paper that get onto the record, you just dust it right off and then pull it on through and get rid of that. All right, next question. The first record that really got you deeper into music. There's kind of two albums that did that. Now, of course, I've talked about how I bought Bon Jovi's Crossroad and Craig Morgan's A Little Bit of Life to be my first albums I ever bought with my own money. And I enjoyed those albums, and I listened to them a lot. However, it wasn't until I was introduced to these two albums that I really started digging deeper, and these are the ones that I only have on CD. In no particular order, Bon Jovi's Have a Nice Day, and Rodney Atkins, If You're Going Through Hell. These are what got me deeper into it. Bon Jovi, because I had Crossroads already, then I decided to buy this. And then from here, my mom introduced me to things like Slippery When Wet in New Jersey, which were the albums that she had as a kid. And then I just went on to Bon Jovi Spiral from there in late middle school. Have a Nice Day has the hit Have a Nice Day, and it also has Who Says You Can't Go Home, which were probably the biggest hits off this album. But there's not a single bad song on this album. It's just not. And then Rodney Atkins, If You're Going Through Hell. This was one of the first albums that I fell in love with and played a whole lot. So, Rodney Atkins, If You're Going Through Hell. Good country album. A band whose second album is better than their first. Well, this is one that everybody may or may not agree with me with, but this is my opinion. Bruce Springsteen's The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. I like this one better than Welcome to Asbury Park, New Jersey, personally. I've only heard this album twice since I've gotten it, and shout out to Jam on Vinyl for sending me this way, or to me, my way. It's a fantastic album, and I've from the few times I've listened to this, I've enjoyed this 10 times more than Greetings from Asbury Park. And of course I have Mike's note in there as well. That's how I always do. Show and Tell Whack-A-Mole, I will insert a clip of that. here. I'm going to record this segment and then go back and do that. And I'll figure out how to cut it into here. All right, guys, let's wax some moles now. Trademark, royalties, all that stuff to Norman Masloff, of course. So let's see. I'm going to pull from my mom's collection here because it's not one that I really do much. So let's see what we pull from mom's collection. Hopefully it's not the Bon Jovi album that I showed earlier, or I'm going to show depending on where this ends up in the video. So let's see. What did I pull out? Okay, this one isn't too bad. Pardon the shakiness. I'm just holding this with my hand. We got John Cougar's American Fool. Fantastic album. This came out in 82, I believe. Yes, on Riva Records. And this had the hits Jack and Diane and Hurt So Good. But there's not a single bad. This is one of those albums that there's not a bad album on, or a bad song on it. There's tons of those in this video, apparently. So, American Fool by John Cougar Mellencamp. What album is the album you've listened to most in your life? There's two of them that came to mind. One of them I couldn't access at the moment, and it's one that I also only have on CD at the moment. I want to get the vinyl record of it. It's Journey's Greatest Hits. It's an album that I heard a whole lot from when I was a kid, every year over the summer. It was one of those in the CD changer that was played outside and all that stuff. But also I remember that same CD was also in my dad's truck for the longest time, for at least a year or two. So that's one of them I've heard one of the most amounts of times. And the other one, we're bringing it back to Rodney Atkins, If You're Going Through Hell. As I said, with the first record that really got me into music, this is one that really got me into there as well. And, you know, there's not a single bad song on this album. I say that about all these, but there really isn't. I actually listened to this for the first time in years the other day and still knew most of the lyrics. There's very few you know, I know almost every lyric to this album. It's one of the few albums I could say that about. I can't even say that about Dream Theater's Metropolis Part 2, truly. So that's kind of saying how much I've really listened to this throughout my life. And if it wasn't for this album, my pride might not be where I am in my musical career now, because I wanted to perform the song Watching You, which was the first hit off this album, or the first hit I was aware of. So, and if you go deep into my YouTube channel, you'll find my very first singing public performance from like 7th grade of me singing this song to a karaoke track before I knew how to play guitar while singing. So I realized I had skipped a question, so I want to go back for a second. Question 6 was skipped. A group you like to collect all their albums of or try to? Johnny Cash, Dream Theater, Led Zeppelin, The Beatles, and the Beatles solo albums, Frank Zappa, Queen, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, and the Rolling Stones. Those are kind of the bands that I came up with on a snap of the fingers. Alright, so now back to question 10 where we were. Show an album that has a crazy story. Well, I think I skipped another question actually. Yeah, I did. Alright. I have my note paper here and I'm just skipping the questions here like there's nobody's business. An obscure record that people may not know. Mother's Gog, Robot Woman. This is probably my most obscure album out there. I have Dylan from Noble Records to thank for sending me this my way. I bought it from him. It was the first transaction we ever did. It's just a wild album. Cool album, but it's out there. So that's my choice for an obscure album. Alright, now we're back on track. Rather than doing a whack-a-mole, which I'll cut into here, I just haven't done that as of the moment when I'm recording this, but it will be here. You would have already seen it by now. Alright, show an album with a crazy story. This one's the only one I'm not going to pull out of the plastic sleeve because I don't want to mess with the shrink wrap on it at the moment because it has shrink wrap. This is Peter, Paul and Mary's album 1700. This had the big hit I Dig Rock and Roll Music, which was probably their biggest hit. But the song, their cover of Leaving on a Jet Plane, which was actually released before the John Denver version. He's the one who wrote the song. That's also on this album. And cool story with this. First, I'm going to share a fun fact about this story, even though this isn't the album I'm sharing a fun fact about, but it's one I want to share a fact about anyway. Album 1700 was actually Warner Brothers album cataloged 1700. So that's kind of a cool thing to hear. Now, this was one of my grandfather's records. I knew Peter, Paul and Mary's greatest hits, but this was one of the first albums that I heard, studio album-wise. And my grandfather always asked me to check out the song Great Mandela, The Wheel of Life. He always talked about that song. Whenever we got any Peter, Paul and Mary, he asked me, have you listened to that song? I would like you to tell me what you think that song means. And I finally did, and I told him it's an anti-war song. He said, yeah, and then he went into a little bit deeper into it. But that's not the crazy story. The crazy story with this album, and I could have pulled any Peter, Paul and Mary album. I just want to talk a little bit more about this album. The crazy story with this album, and the few people who I've talked to outside of just the YouTube videos have heard the story, one or two of you, but what's crazy about this album and this group as a whole, my grandfather was in a club in New York City with some friends at a bar, and they were doing live music one day, and there was a trio performing. Just a folk trio. The kind of music that was emerging at the time in the early 60s. That group ended up becoming Peter, Paul and Mary. Yeah. So that was one of the many cool stories my grandfather got to share with his record collection, and that's a cool story to go along with Peter, Paul and Mary. All right, you're collecting pet peeves. All right, record stores cramming their records. When you can't go through them, or you have to pull half of them out to even flip through them, screw it. I might just, there have been times where I have left a record store and just was like, I don't need to do this. Dirty record stores. Not only talking about dirty records, dirty employees. Quite frankly, I've experienced those. You wouldn't think so, but dirty floors, dirty experiences, all around dirty, gross. Rude employees. Thankfully, I haven't experienced some of that, but I have experienced employees who think they're all that in a bag of chips when they really ain't. And then, this isn't necessarily a record store problem, but new records coming out of the sleeve scuffed. That's a quality control issue that we have in today's era of record collection when so many records are being produced. And back in the 80s, when they had more, or 70s or whatever, back when this was the main format, there wasn't those issues. So I don't understand why today we have those issues, but we do. And it drives me nuts because sometimes some of those records are not cheap. All right, question 12. An album or genre that people would be surprised you like. Well, most people aren't surprised by anything that I've pulled out because most people are like, oh, I'm not surprised you like it because, let's face it, I like just about everything. However, one that most people don't consider me to like is classical or instrumental music. And I differentiate that because classical music, there's like operas and all this other stuff with vocals in it. So I wanted to put them both separately. And I decided to show this album. I think I've shown this album in the past, but I'm just a sucker for this album, and it's one that you find for cheap, if not for 50 cents to $1. I don't remember how much I paid for this. I might have paid $1 for this at a Goodwill. But Percy Faith's greatest hits. Percy Faith, he's just like Johnny Mathis. He's one you get for cheap, and I enjoy the fucking records. They're just great. They put me in a good mood. The Syncopated Clock and Swedish Rhapsody are my favorites off this album, which are the last two songs on side 2. And the theme from A Summer's Place is one that everybody will know as soon as they hear it. They might not know it by name, but if they heard it, they would recognize it immediately. Yeah, I know that this kind of music isn't considered cool in today's era, but I love it. A record from the year you were born. Well, I don't have a lot of them either on any format really, which is kind of unfortunate. I realized that mighty quickly. But a record from the year you were born, my favorite Aerosmith album, 9 Lives. This is not an original pressing, and it's not like I think they did another pressing in 2010. This is the 2019 pressing, and it's good. My only complaint is they added 2 extra songs to it. They added the song from Armageddon, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, which, I mean, I don't mind that song. I know some people hate it, some people love it, some people are indifferent to it. I've become indifferent to this at this point to it. I'm used to love it now. I've heard it so many times, but I don't hate it yet. I'm sure maybe one day I will, depending on how much more I hear it. But I Don't Want to Miss a Thing was added to it, and I don't think that really should have happened. I believe the other album, the other song they added, I believe was a song called Falling Off. I think that was the other one they added to this. don't quote me on the falling off, but I Don't Want to Miss a Thing was definitely added because that was from the Armageddon soundtrack. I kind of was listening to this and I heard that and I was like, that doesn't belong on this album. But yeah, one of my favorite Aerosmith albums. And if you don't know the song Falling in Love Is So Hard on the Knees or A Taste of India, those are two really unique and cool songs. Taste of India more so than Falling in Love Is So Hard on the Knees. But you know, Rachel the Music Man, if you're watching, you like all sorts of fancy music and eclectic stuff, so you might really appreciate the song Taste of India, even if you might not like the song yourself, but I feel like you'd appreciate it. Next, show a 10-inch record and or share your opinion on 10 inches. Well, I did a 10-inch vinyl record tag, so you guys know I have a handful of 10 inches, so I'll show one of my favorites, Snarky Puppy's Shark Tank. This was a Record Store Day Black Friday, I believe. No, it was just regular Record Store Day of 2018. And Snarky Puppy, modern jazz fusion, cool stuff. It's unique compared to anything else. I've never heard anything quite like Snarky Puppy. And my thoughts on 10 inches, I don't go out of my way to find all of them except for two of my 10 inches were given to me. One of them was this one, the other one was a Blitzen Trapper 10-inch that I showed in my Vinyl Tag video that was purchased the same day, same Record Store Day. If I find something cool, I'll buy it, but I'm not going out of my way to do it. Like if there's some jazz or something like that, I'll grab that. But overall, I'm not going out of my way to find them. But that Peggy Lee Black Coffee one I was given was pretty cool. So maybe it's something I need to give more attention to. Next, share an interesting fact about a song or album. All right, I had talked about this in the collaboration that I did with Dylan over the Record Spinner and M8 Vinyl Low, but for those who didn't get to hear the fact, because I know people sometimes skip around in videos, especially if they're long, and or might not have watched the whole thing because they might have gotten sidetracked due to its length. I understand. I'm not calling people out or complaining. It's just how it is, and I understand there's times where I have to do the same thing, and then I go back later and watch it in more depth. So I'm one of those people too. I'm not going to deny it. But an interesting fact about this, I'm going to just reshare it. There's a song on here called Wishing You Were Here. And 3 members of the Beach Boys are featured singing on that song. So and I thought that was pretty cool. And I never noticed it until I looked up some facts about this album for that other video. And then I replayed the song. And I was like, oh, well, crap, I never knew that. So that was pretty cool. So there's that. And there's some more facts I shared in that other video. So if you want to go check that out, you can check out the other video that I just mentioned a few seconds ago. Show an album with an animal on the cover. This is the first thing I thought of, and as cheap as it is, Pink Floyd's Animals. There's a pig right there. The pig on a wing. Even though it's pigs on a wing, but you know what I'm going for. And then you got again in the gatefold, the pig again right there. And also the title of the album is Animals, so I thought that was fitting. I saw Norman Maslow did Atom Heart Mother. I cannot believe that I had forgotten about that album completely. But when I saw him do his video, I kind of like smacked myself in the head a little bit over that. But anyway, show an album with a crazy artwork. I'm going with the Grateful Dead's Anamoxa. I'm not going to go in depth to this album cover because I'm not going to be talking about all the sexual innuendos and all that stuff that's in here. I didn't even realize it until a couple of times after listening. Then I was looking more at the album cover and I was like, oh my god, there's all the sexual innuendos in there. So you could look at the album cover yourself, whether it be here or you can Google image it and you can get it all yourself. But it's interesting and it's unique. And it's also kind of showing the way life is made and the growth of life. So, I mean, it's cool, it's unique, but I'm not going to go into detail on video and talk about the sexual connotations associated with that album cover. But even without that, it's kind of a crazy album cover. Show a really good album that you can find for cheap. This is the first album I thought of. Styx, The Grand Illusion. Now, there was a time where this was my favorite Styx album, but it's no longer the case. It's one of my top couple, but this had to hit. Fooling Yourself and Come Sail Away. Those were the two big hits off this album. And, you know, you'll find this anywhere between $3 and $7, $10 max. Don't pay more than that unless you're getting the MoFi pressing, because then you're kind of being cheated. But, you know, good early prog rock for you. They weren't quite as prog at this time, but still there. All right. 19, show an album with an acquired taste. This album has such an acquired taste that I'm still acquiring it. Let's just put it that way. Frank Zappa, Jazz from Hell. The first time I heard this album, I enjoyed it. I thought it was wacky. I was listening to it passively. I thought it was wacky. Thought it was cool. Thought it was unique. An all-instrumental Zappa album. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Second and third listening, I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm like, I don't need to hear this anymore. And I haven't since, but I think I'm going to be playing this again after I've pulled this out today, because I'm curious to hear it again. And it's not that it's a bad album, even though it's definitely an acquired taste. And putting this album on for a first Frank Zappa album is a way to turn someone off of Frank Zappa and make that individual never want to listen to him again. So do not choose this as your first Zappa album. Choose something like Overnight Sensation or the stereotypical choice apostrophe, something like that. But yeah, very unique. And I am Frank Zappa completist, as you learned earlier in the video, so of course I need to have it. And the final question is, show a recent find, or show your most recent find, excuse me. Now, I don't know what my most recent find is, because I have so many things that I get in. So I just have a bin of recent arrivals, and when I listen to them, I listen to them. When they're clean, and I just am slowly going through them, and quarantine has allowed me to get through them quicker. I need a new stylus on this turntable that's right here, so I need to listen to my records on a different one now until I get a new stylus. However, this is one of my most recent new listens in recent days of that bin, and it's the Pretenders' Learning to Crawl. It's the first Pretenders album that I have owned, and it's funny, Jersey Joey put out a video of, I don't remember what the topic of the video was, but pretty much he said that he's judging your record collection based on if you own the Pretenders' first album. And I know he was just busting everybody, and or was he? You'll never know. But he was doing it playfully. He wasn't being malicious about it. And I pulled this out immediately because I knew this was here, cleaned it, and played it, and sent him a photo. And I was like, don't worry, you could judge my collection well. Like, it's just funny. But so there's my tag video for the quarantine edition. So thank you, Dylan, over at Noble Records for this. I will see you guys in the next On a Record video.